What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today we're going to be talking about ESports Boxing Club. Now I know you guys are interested in all the videos that us creators are making, but this one I thought was relatively important. I've made videos on my overall experience, on the positives, on the feedback that I had where things need to be better, and a few other things in detail. Whereas this one I thought would actually be quite interesting, and that is, was I disappointed by ESports Boxing Club in terms of what I expected and how the game feels from visuals, gameplay feel in general, boxing realism, and fun. Now those are kind of the four factors of a game, of course. Visually, the feel of the gameplay, the topic, which is boxing realism, and then of course fun, because these games, they need to be fun at the end of the day. So I'm just going to talk to you guys about each one and yeah, just give you my overall opinion of, was I disappointed? Was it more than I expected, less than I expected? So let's get into it. Now we're going to start with visually. Right off the bounce, I'm going to say that it looks incredible. We knew that already. People always say graphics aren't everything, but right away when you load it up, there's a screen that, press any button to play. That looks great. The menus look brilliant. You press fight now. It goes to the not anything is final, by the way, but you go to the character selection screen. All the fighters visually look brilliant. None of them don't look like themselves. You could not have the names and you could go, that is Crawford, that is Gatti, that is Ward, that is Wilder, Fury, Rocky Marciano, Joe Lewis, Carl Froch, Caleb Plant. You would never fail. Of course, there's things like Fury's beard's a bit too ginger, but you will always know who these fighters are without a doubt. Now, menus-wise, everything like that leading up before the gameplay looks brilliant. Visually is stunning. In the game, everything looks brilliant. The heads-up display, the HUD, the health, where it is, the stamina, the little icons, the name, the flags, all that stuff looks great. The little clock looks great. The crowd, the arenas, they all look very good for where the game is at. Of course, the crowd is, we played a few venues and some were small crowds, some were bigger. I preferred the smaller ones, to be honest, the smaller venues. And they looked brilliant, and they really did. And I was genuinely impressed visually. I was already expecting good graphics, but like there's certain fighters they haven't shown yet, like Crawford, and he takes it up a step. He looks brilliant. Everything, his beard, his hair, just his face, his everything, like eye shape, nose shape, everything, color of his skin, the way, just everything about it is perfectly him. There is no like shortcomings on any of these fighters. From someone like Gatti, we know, like, and how he looked, kind of like, I suppose, kind of scrunched, kind of a scrunched face, and like Ward's blonde hair and things like that, and Wilder's brilliant, I don't know what they're called, those braid things, I'm terrible at that, what the big braids, and Conor Ben's tattoos, everything visually was more than I expected. Now gameplay feel. Now that's a very, I suppose, stupid, juvenile way of saying, the gameplay feel, but I just want to say how the gameplay feels. Now the game feels brilliant. It runs well. For the build we played as well, it runs smooth. It feels great. You feel like you are finally in control of these fighters. You don't feel like, are they just going to step out? Are they just going to, you have to shift the weight. You have to, what to throw as you enter. You really feel in control, and you can't just run in throwing shit. You have to control the game and feel the game, and everything is so receptive with the controller, and it just, it doesn't, if it does feel like a game, but it feels like you're visually watching something that you're controlling at the same time, which you are. That's a game. You're watching it and you're controlling it, but it feels like I'm controlling a real fight, and that is genuinely, in a nutshell, how the gameplay felt. Of course, there was things where there was bugs and issues, but one thing I'm going to say, and that is hand on my heart, is it never felt clunky. There was never a point where I was like, that feels clunky, that feels like kind of out of place. Combinations just worked well. Of course, if you actually fight, you know that some combinations don't flow as smoothly as others. So there is not a combination in the world that doesn't work. You will always be able to hit the bag, for example, with any combination. You could jab, uppercut, hook, jab, 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 hook, uppercut, all with one hand. And yeah, it's not going to work in a fight. Of course it's not. But that would work, but it doesn't really work. However, the combinations that we do, 1, 2, 3, silky smooth. Say you want to come in and you're a southpaw, the straight, the lead hook, and then let's say you want to come with this uppercut, the lead hook and back step, and then the two as they come in, everything like that just feels silky smooth. So gameplay feel was levels above what I expected, if I'm honest. I thought we were going to feel a bit of clunkiness. I thought we were going to feel a bit of jitteriness because of maybe a bit too many bugs, but the way things feel and the animations as well, just as well visually, I suppose that's gameplay and visually together. The animations are just so pleasing to the eye. Honestly, guys, it is. The animations are very pleasing for what they are. Of course, there are things missing in the build we played. Switch stance doesn't work as well as it should, but even that is visually brilliant. And there was, to be honest, visually and feeling wise, there wasn't an issue where I was like, this doesn't feel right. There was a few things, like I've mentioned in my other videos, where like things were missing, but I never thought, that his jab doesn't feel right, his 1-2 doesn't feel right. Of course, like I mentioned, like the straights are a bit weak, but visually and the game feeling, it all feels and looks brilliant. And it does look like you're controlling a real fight. It's almost insane how it feels. But before I carry on rambling, we're going to go on to the next topic, which is boxing realism. Now, I thought I'd cover this one before I covered the fun aspect, because I thought this is something, these two are quite important to people. Now, of course, some people expect too much. There's a certain level where realism is pushed too far. You know, we could have it where instead of utilizing the touchpad on the PlayStation, this could be your breathe mechanic. So you hold it and you... No one's going to enjoy that. No one's going to enjoy it. So there is a level. There is a level to how much realism is too much realism. Now, in terms of boxing as a whole, realism as a whole, or maybe I'll go a different approach and I'll say arcadey. The game does not feel, even in a casual mode that we played, it does not feel arcadey. When I fought the Office Champ, we really went 12 rounds, mixing up game plans, moving around, being clever. And in terms of a boxing realism standpoint, if you're wanting to get on with your friends and you want to say, my favourite fighter is A, my favourite fighter is B, let's fight, you will have that fight. It will go, guarantee you, that fight will go different every time you play it, without a doubt. Maybe you'll be better than your friend and you'll always win, but there'll always be things that will come out. Maybe your friend who's not as good as you will flash drop you in fight number 3, and you'll be fine, but that wouldn't have happened in those other 2 fights. And then, the fight will always be different. Things will always happen differently as they do in boxing. I think that's what's so incredible. There was things that I experienced once, but I didn't experience again. And that's almost the beauty of it. There are some things that you can do again and again, of course, but there are some things that you won't see often. And I guarantee every fight you have will be a different fight. Of course, there may be people that hide behind a jab, but you learn how to fight that. And that's the thing with it is the game plan. And well, actually, no, sorry, because game plan is more boxing. Let's talk as a game, the boxing realism, the ability to adjust and be in control of changing. Now, when I play UFC, I don't feel like I'm completely in control of my game plan. I feel like there are some really high level players, Martial Mind. He will know, like, okay, what I'm gonna do to tire this guy is I'm gonna take him down, and now I'm gonna one shot like I do with John Jones. He's gonna teep, and as he comes, he's gonna elbow. But people like that are, Marshall can do that. However, I feel like ESBC is at a place where everyone's gonna feel comfortable to change that game plan. There's not, whereas in UFC, I feel like, as someone that just plays, that just boxing in general and mixing in the occasional punch, the occasional kick, at the end of a 3-punch combination is far superior than anything else. Now, of course, I'm not at the top level, so I don't know, but I feel like the inside striking in UFC, or what they call inside striking, is far superior than anything else. I may be wrong, but that's what I feel, because you're in elbow range, punch range, knee range. I feel like that's far superior in UFC, whereas in ESBC, I felt in control of all my game plans. Whether I wanted to tuck in on the inside, head-to-head, glove-to-glove, and throw those shots, or if I wanted to move around and jab, or if maybe I want to step in and out, fight on the back foot, maybe just counter. I felt in control, and those game plans are very visible, as they are in boxing. You're watching someone fight, Shakur Stevenson, for example. We watched him fight one of those fights, and people were like, this was a boring fight, but you knew his game plan was move around, stick and move. Then, he fights someone like Herring. He's much more aggressive. You see that game plan. It's a visible game plan. And that's where ESBC is at right now, is it's at the point where you will feel comfortable doing any game plan you see fit. And of course, like I mentioned, fighting on the inside was a bit overpowered in this build because the body punches were a bit too powerful. However, that's been addressed. They know that. So that's not something that's going to be in the build where you're going to run in and go, to the body and someone's going to go down. That's going to be addressed. They know that, of course. So that's where I'm at in the terms of boxing realism. Now, if we go on to fun. Fun is something that people focus on a lot, of course, because it's a game. You don't want to sit there and be bored. You don't want to sit there and be like, I've got to take it so serious. Me and Reese, we played a lot. Very different in terms of style, in terms of boxing knowledge when it comes to being in the ring, or boxing experience in terms of watching the sport for years. We're different age groups as well, me and Reese. I thought the developers, they've played the game far more than me. So we all have different experiences with it. And in terms of fun, there was never a fight where I was like, I'm bored halfway through. And now you could say that's because you only just played the game. It was lots of hype. You got to remember, I played for 7 or 8 hours a day for 2 days straight with 11 fighters, 3 arenas. There is only so many unique bouts you can do between people, being the fact that there's only 2 middleweights, so you have to do the same fight over and over again. Heavyweights, there's only 4, but because of the build we played, you couldn't. There was an issue with like the really tall ones against the short ones, so that was limited. Welterweight, there was a good amount, So, but in terms of, I mentioned before, I used Crawford really fast, able to utilize his speed. I then used Brook. I'm slower. So for me from a boxing fan, but the whole game is fun. Even the developers who maybe aren't boxing fans, everyone's having a laugh. Even if it's a really close fight, people are watching behind us, like getting involved as if they're watching a real fight. And the game is generally a fun game. Of course, if you play a game, I don't know, 2,000 hours, like off the bounce on its first, say the game has been out for 2,000 hours and you've got 2,000 hours played, chances are you may very well be bored. But when we were mixing things up, different game plans, different fighters, they feel different, so you're getting after used to each and every fighter. The game is just fun, and they've found, in my opinion, this brilliant balance between realism and fun. Now, by fun, I don't mean arcadey whatsoever. I mean, a boxing fan will enjoy this game and will have fun with this game. 1, size of the roster. 2, the way the game feels. 3, the way it looks. A hardcore boxing fan will have fun on this game because it is so real, because the adjustments you can make, because of the way you can change the tone of a fight with one perfect slip counter to the body. You can change the flow of a fight in an instant. And I never had a fight where I was like, this is boring. Even when Reese beat me, even when I lost to the one of the top QAs and the champ, never was once like, this is boring, this is shit. At the end of those fights, I was like, good stuff, man. Like, it was so much fun. Like, those 12 rounds, I was like, that was like when I went the distance twice, I was like, guys, that was a fucking sick fight. Like, that was so much fun. And thinking about it, it still makes me smile because the game is genuinely fun. And, of course, I've had a few days to sit on it now. Almost like 4 or 5 days now. And was I disappointed going to ESports Boxing Club? Absolutely not. Of course, I expected there to be more fighters in the build we played. I did, and initially I was like, I said, is that 11? Is that it? But once you realise there was a thing that we especially me and Reese, well, especially me. I don't want to speak for Reese. That's it's a bit out of turn, but I definitely said, like, is 11 fighters really enough for 2 full days? Like, 8-9 hours of non-stop gameplay, is that enough? But the thing is that we always forget with this game is every fighter is different. So it was more than enough, because you play with Crawford, and come round 8 when you maybe win the fight, round 6 you start to get his time, but you're like, oh fuck, I want to play with him again. Then come that second fight, you get his timing, but now it's time to learn where you can utilise his combinations. So you're like, oh, I want to use him again. And then you're like, oh fuck, I've had 2 fights, that's taken up my first hour. Shit, so alright, now I'll go to Tyson Fury. And you're utilising his movement. But then let's say you play with him, and then you're like, oh, I use Kell Brook. He's a bit slower. So you use him, and you're like, oh, you win, and you're like, that was actually pretty fun. However, I only felt like I was getting into his groove in that, you know what I mean? So every single fighter, because they feel themselves, it's not like you're just like, you play, not like they've just put some punch sets on them and gone bugger off. The movements, the speed, the timing of these fighters, the combinations of these fighters is all so real. Sorry, that screen's gone off, guys. Is all so real, and I think that's what made it the most fun, is that you were always finding new ways to utilise a fighter that you maybe had only used once, 0 times, 3 times, 4 times, and that was the fun, is that you were always finding ways. When I use Caleb Plant's loose movement, I almost wet myself with excitement. It's honestly, like, the game is fun, but the game is realistic, and that's why I've keep saying, they're on this track, and they just need to go full steam ahead now. No pissing about. Like, they're on the right track for sure. They just need to get it going. And of course, I don't know what game development takes. I'm not saying for them to rush. I'm just saying that they are on the right track, and they need to not worry about if they are on the right path. They need to commit to this track they're on and just go. And yeah, so in terms of was I disappointed? Absolutely not. Yeah, there was issues with that, as I've stated. Things that we had to learn how to deal with. You know, just pause and unpause, and most of them fixed. But as a game, visually, brilliant. Gameplay felt great. Boxing realism felt realistic, but it felt fun, and I think that's the key. But I just thought I'd talk about this, you know, because I thought this might be a bit of an interesting topic, and we could really kind of hunker down on that point of fun and realism, and yeah. But yeah, I just thought I'd cover this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.